Hi, my name is Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Multifamily Rockstars. So this is where we interview people that are freaking crushing it in this business. And we show you guys the inside scoop on how multifamily investors are creating massive success in their businesses and in their lives. And as always, I've got my co-host, the director of our massive action team for the Warrior Group, Mark Nagy, on the call. Mark, what's happening, buddy? What are you excited about lately?
Hey, Rod, a lot actually, but I said this last week, but I just continue to get so much good feedback from these episodes that people are just really inspired by the stories. And so just really excited to keep this going and, keep meeting great new people that are crushing it in this business, like you said.
Love it. Yeah. So we've got a friend and a dynamic individual on the show today. His name is John Vander Giessen, and John is from Idaho. And he's got a unique background in that he was a professional rugby player. I mean, he represented the U.S. in 2007 and 11 in the Rugby World Cups, and he was a captain and, just an incredible athletic career. And then now he's in real estate and in multifamily real estate. He's a warrior in our mentorship program. And he and his partners have acquired 326 doors, over $56 million worth of assets. And so we're going to have a lot of fun today. And he's got a newer baby. So, life is awesome. Welcome to the show, brother.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ron. I'm looking forward to adding value to the listeners however I can.
Love it. So, tell a little bit more, expand a little bit on what the bio that I just mentioned, and maybe talk about how you got into real estate, and just a little more of your story, if you would.
Sure, I'd love to. And before I get going, Rod, I just want to say thank you very much. It's sort of surreal for me to be on this, being interviewed by you, because early doors in your podcast, I think in 2016 or thereabouts, I was listening, and the people that you're interviewing and the caliber of what they're doing and all of these things that they've accomplished, it seemed light years from where I was at the time. And to be here on your podcast, and I still have a long way to go in my own right, for sure, but it's fantastic, and a credit to you for the ecosystem that you've built. I've made some fantastic friends and business partners because of the Warrior Group. So thank you.
Oh no, it's really cool to hear that, buddy. And I love to, be a fly on the wall for this. And very, very exciting. Very, very exciting.
And so a little bit more about me, Rod. Like you said, Idaho kid, went to University of Idaho. Still had something left in the tank, but needed to have an activity. And my friend said, "You should play rugby, John." And I said, "What's that?" And so I went out for a Tuesday training, the Thursday training, played that weekend, and 10 years later ended up retiring from professional athletics, representing the U.S. team, as you said, and also in the English Premiership and French Top 14. So it was just an incredible ride, and we don't even have enough time to scratch that surface. But I looked around and started in the entrepreneurial space, and I got a crash course MBA. It was unbelievable, taking something from an idea to actually profitable. And then, I looked around and I wanted more control with my time, Rod. And I had my girls, and, I just said, gosh, there's something out there. And I had been around real estate for a long time. My parents had been in real estate. My aunt is a, almost 80-year-old, $62 million producer in the Washington, D.C. area. A great mentor of mine, owns a real estate brokerage. And, it's just kind of always been in my blood and a curiosity. And so, I took that step and, started listening and absorbing content and listening to podcasts, reading books, et cetera. And then it finally just clicked where I had this moment where I said, I got to get going. I have to take action. And, with my background with teams and, coaches, et cetera, it was just a no-brainer for me to kind of start interviewing people and reaching out to people that might be a coach. And that's, thankfully, I stumbled upon the Warrior Group and what you guys have been up to, and I've been a part of it ever since.
Tell me this, John, what do you have you made any mental changes that you feel may have contributed to your success? Or did you bring anything from the competitive athletics that you think may have contributed to your success?
Those are great questions, and absolutely yes. So what I find funny after retiring from professional athletics is that while I was an athlete, it was supposed to be all about you, not selfishly, but it was on you. It was your personal responsibility to train yourself to be the best that you could be so that you could help your team out. And your team in the civilian world, if you will, that's your family, that's your company. That's a lot of different things. And so I don't see a lot of people investing in themselves to try to get them to be a level 10 of whoever they are, as much as I see that in athletics. And it translates completely into business, which is funny. I just don't see it that much. But the folks that do double down on themselves so that they can be the best they can be, then they can help more people and do more things and accomplish more. It's really amazing. So I translated that very easily. But, you know, a lot of people don't talk about this, Rod, but the transition from athletics is actually really, really tough because that's your identity. Mm-hmm. That's who you think you are. And as soon as I recognized that I wasn't John, the rugby player, John, the athlete, was something that I did. It wasn't who I was. When I made that transition, Rod, I finally figured out that there was a lot more in life, and there was a lot more happiness, joy, abundance. There's a lot of great things out there. And there's a lot of people out there that wanted to help you. And I could, whether that be in multifamily real estate, in business and in athletics, I can trace back all the way to my beginnings where there were people out there that didn't have to open a door for me, but they did. And so that's something that I've always tried to do in my life too, is, be an open door for people, be a resource. I'm not giving handouts, but I'm certainly giving hand-ups.
I love it. Love it. What an awesome phrase. I'm not giving handouts, I'm giving hand-ups. I love that. Yeah. It's very interesting that you broached a subject that I have never talked about on this show before. And that is making your vehicle your identity. And in the athletics, as it were, and maybe even vehicle is the wrong phrase, making your vocation, your what it is that you do, be it business or athletics, your identity. And that's a very, very dangerous thing to do. And really, the fact that you came to that realization, I know Tony Robbins, of course, you guys all know I followed him around the planet for 20 years, and he talks about that extensively, that not to allow that to happen because it's very, very dangerous if you have a setback. Like when I lost $50 million, a little bit of that came into play where, I'm a failure. I failed and it's like it was me, but it was just, it wasn't. It was the vehicle. And so I'm really glad you brought that up, John. That's never come up before. So go ahead, Mark. I don't want to monopolize.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper. I mean, John, what are some important questions then that you think everybody should ask themselves?
Well, number one, what do you want? I find that a lot of people are out there and they just don't have a clear picture about what they want. They have a very clear picture about what they don't want, right? But then when you actually stop and say, okay, that's cool that you don't want this and this and this, but where do you want? With absolute clarity, can you tell me what your 2021 is going to look like, your 5-year, your 10-year, your life? How are you writing your life? I did something this last week where I got a countdown calendar on my phone, and it's a simple app, but I put in my 100th birthday, and then it started clicking down as soon as I entered that date in. And it was wild to me, the feeling that I got saying, oh, wow, I've only got 22,000 days left. So, got to get after it, right? You've got to wake up with that understanding that today is your only opportunity for success. And that's something that I think about every day.
I'm so glad you told me that, because I was going to actually get a countdown calendar and put it on the wall and have it in front of me to remind me. And actually, I bought one. I couldn't get it to work, and I didn't even think about a freaking app. Thank you for that tip. I thought about getting a big jar with marbles in it and pulling one out every day or every week and watching those marbles go down. I'm like, shit, that jar, is going to be too. Yeah. Anyway, I'm so glad you said that, brother. Now, yeah. And I want to circle back to something you just said, because it's so freaking important. Again, you ask somebody what they want, they'll tell you what they don't want. But guys, what you focus on is what you get. So if you're focused on what you don't want, what do you think gets bigger? Right? Love it, man. Love it. Love it. Go ahead, Mark.
No, you're absolutely right. John, tell us about a stressful situation that you've had in your business, maybe the most stressful situation that you've ever faced.
Oh man. Well, I think, in my, humble beginnings in multifamily real estate, I would say that, sometimes things don't go as planned. In fact, they really never do, right? And I can tell you things like, the capital raise as an example. You for whatever reason, it doesn't go exactly as planned, but it's amazing to me how we don't live in a lack of resources. We just live in a lack of resourcefulness sometimes in our minds, if that makes sense. So, I've had some incredibly stressful periods where, you just don't know if you're going to be able to get all the capital that you need in order to close a deal. And that's not a fun position to be in. But nonetheless, every day is a new opportunity. And who else can you talk to? What else could I do? What stone can I overturn? And that sort of mentality, amazingly gets you through, and you learn from it and move forward. Apply what you've learned to your next move, your next deal, your next capital raise, et cetera. And you just keep growing. So that's really what it is. Turn that stress into an opportunity for growth.
And massive action.
Totally.
That sort of stress, stress is the achiever's word for fear. And if you want to mitigate fear, you mitigate it through massive freaking action. So love it. Let's talk for a minute, because you brought up raising equity, and there's no question that I know what role you play in your team. Let's talk about team for a minute. Talk about, the components of and the roles that are in the team that you've put together for these first deal or two. And I don't know if it's a long-term team, but talk about how your first deals came together, the role you played and the role maybe others in that team played.
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate because, I've put myself out there and I've just been willing to say yes. And that's something that, I can trace back where, as an example, I got a random email from somebody that said, John, will you come and play for me in the French Alps in a men's club? And I sent back 20 different questions, and he replied, fly into Geneva, I'll collect you there. I still said yes, and I was willing to put myself out there in an uncomfortable position, and it 10x'd my life because of that. Same thing with multifamily real estate. You just never know who you're going to meet, and if they give you an opportunity where you look through the door and you're like, why not? Let's say yes. Let's go. And so I've jumped through a few of those doors with people, and other warriors, which has been unbelievably fantastic. And, I've taken trips with warriors, and my coach through the warrior group has been phenomenal too. And I've been able to do a couple of deals with him, and that's been a lot of fun. So, it is evaluating how you can bring value to a team. And
so what value, sorry to interrupt. What value do you feel you brought to the team? I guess that's where I wanted to go with this.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So capital raising, absolutely. Bit of due diligence too. Asset management, getting on calls, talking about what we need to do strategically. If you try to get me in front of an Excel spreadsheet, Rod, it's my kryptonite, and you don't want me there. And that's okay. And that's really okay, because going back to previous statement, I got really clear about what I'm good at and what I'm not. And there are some fantastic people out there that will complement you incredibly on a team.
Yeah, you and I are very much alike in that regard. I mean, I can read a spreadsheet, I just don't love it. And why would you do that? Something you don't love? You hire, align, or partner for where you're weak, which is what you've done. So you've brought the capital raising, which I knew obviously because you're extremely outgoing and personable, and have. And I
love to. Rod, and I love to talk to people. I love to bring value. I love continually cultivating relationships with people for the long term, because that's where the gold's at. I always say the fortune's in the follow-up. You can't expect to be getting deals from brokers. And I have, in Boise, which is one of the top 3 markets in the country, I have broker friends that I sit down with regularly, and they pick up the phone and they call me. Well, that happens because we've been doing this for a long time. And people do business with who they know, like, and trust, and are consistent in their relationship building. So, I mean, that's a massive thing. People that are out there in positions like me, they need to focus on that. and look hard as to, how can I expand my skill sets, and, following up with brokers, making sure that you're being consistent in that space. It's so important.
Love it.
100%.
Yeah. So you played a role in that too. Okay, good. So I know a topic that you love to talk about, like I do, John, is momentum. Elaborate on that topic for us.
Sure. I'll take you on a quick story. So Rod, humbly speaking, when I was a professional athlete, I could walk around town in the towns I lived in Europe, and people would stop and take pictures with me, ask for autographs. I had an agent. I was on TV playing on Western Europe television, on any given weekend. And then those spotlights go off, and all of a sudden, I'm not sure where I'm going in life, and I just let it compound and compound. And then all of a sudden, I took my foot off the gas long enough to where I lost that momentum. And I can tell you folks that it is really, really hard to regain that momentum. It's not impossible by any means. And there's more stories than we can count of successes because people were willing to do the work to regain momentum or get momentum for the first time. But it's certainly absolutely vital that you take that first step and really look into leaning into getting more momentum, because it starts to pick up, day after day, week after week, month after month, and you have absolute transformations.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, of course, that resonates with me because I lost everything in 2008 and I had to build it back. And I remember starting this podcast when there were, I got excited. We had 1,000 downloads and we just broke 10 million. So it's like, and that momentum is it's like you roll that snowball uphill for a while and ultimately it'll start rolling downhill. So,
love it. Well, I know you mentioned you've done some deals with, one of your coaches, but tell us about some of the coaches that you've had, over time and really how they've helped you get into this.
Yeah, I'll be really transparent. So after rugby, I didn't understand, I mentioned that identity piece. I fell into a pretty big depression for a while. And I had a relationship that ended, and I had my 6-month-old girl at the time. And that was a really, really tough position. And I didn't know how, the next month's rent was going to be, all sorts of things, just feeling that scarcity and uncertainty and pain, emotionally bankrupt and financially bankrupt is what I say. And I don't know how it happened, but I came across, Tony Robbins' coaching program, and I got on a call, and I literally had no money in order to pay for that. And as Rod knows, and a few other warriors, Tony Robbins coaching is not cheap by any means. But I just knew that I had to do something. And so I just pulled the trigger on getting that coaching. And, Erica, shout out to her, she completely transformed, or at least helped me transform myself is a better way to put it. Right. And got me on a different path and a trajectory. And I just carried that momentum day in, day out. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to be willing to invest in yourself. You guys have heard Jim Rohn's statement, work harder on yourself than you do your business. I can't tell you how important that is right there. So Tony Robbins coaching, locally here, I have a coach, and I've been coaching, with Rod and the Warrior Group and Steve Breton. He's been unbelievable as well as a resource. And really, even folks that I don't actively coach with, you jump into masterminds on the Warrior Group. With Jens and Powell Chi and a lot of people that are amazingly open to just jumping on a call with you and listening to where you're at, giving you a couple of ideas on what you could tweak and improve upon, and how you can collaborate. Lots of really cool stuff out there.
Yeah, it's isn't it interesting, those of you listening, to hear that this guy John was destitute financially. And you hear him talk, and you hear the incredible intelligence, the incredible passion, the energy, and it just goes to tell you, even with someone like John, if you don't have your focus right, you don't have your mindset right, it can bring truly extraordinary people to their knees. And I know Erica helped you with that, as the coaches that I've had through their program helped me with that, and with myself, going through things that came up for me as well, and it's just really interesting to hear when someone of your caliber struggles like that, and it's so impressive that they helped you identify with how you were identifying and the importance of that. So anyway, that's really fascinating to hear about you, John. I did not know that about you, and just fascinating to me. So let's get back to multifamily. I mean, guys, listen, if you have an opportunity to see Tony speak, just freaking go do it. If you can afford his coaching, just go do it. And frankly, you should be seeking out coaches for every area of your business. I've had, coaches and mentors for my speaking ability, for my marketing ability, certainly for real estate. And so it's just a critical component of success. You had them in rugby, obviously, you knew the value of coaches in your rugby experience. So, let's talk about multifamily for a minute. What do you feel like it takes to become a full-time multifamily investor? What do you think of the components? For the people that are listening that want to get into this business, what might you say to them to answer that question?
I would say that, Rod, not having success is tough, but also getting success is tough. So you might as well just pick getting success, right? And so that's going to take a long period of time. So you're going to have to be consistent and persistent, like I keep pounding on, and you're going to have to get very clear about where you want to go. I don't really focus on, hey, I want to have 1,000 doors in the next 2 years or something like that. My metrics are, I want to do really great deals with really great people. That's it. And so I lead with that compass. And it's amazing what I'm focusing on and what I find. I find really great people and really great deals to put together teams. And I've really enjoyed that piece. So for somebody that's starting out and wanting to be full-time, you're going to have to create a strategy. That's a huge thing. You just can't start jumping onto LoopNet and looking all across the country. Start in your back door and be a student. And if your back door, for whatever reason, doesn't have a great opportunity, which, believe me, I live in one of the most competitive multifamily markets in the country, and things don't pencil out, frankly. But that doesn't mean I don't stop looking. I don't tell myself a story where there's not a deal. There's going to be a deal here, Rod. It's just hasn't happened yet. Time hasn't caught up to the deal I'm buying.
No, love it. And no, you're absolutely right. And we had a broker speak to the Warriors from Boise. I don't know if you were on that call. Yeah. So we know how hot that market is, how tough that market is, but inevitably you're going to get a deal there. Hell, the Sarasota market here is insane. And we ultimately got a deal here as well. And so
on that note, Rod, let's just say that, you don't have a great market. Maybe you live incredibly rurally or something like that. But what do you have? What resources do you have at your disposal? And how can you connect to other people that are looking for what you have as a skill set and really start to network? And it might be uncomfortable for some personality types that are on this call listening, and that's okay. But you got to put that out of your way, because that's just a small barrier to your next phone call, because literally one phone call can completely transform your life.
Yeah. One networking call, no question. And guys, if you're not interested in the Warrior program, go out and network on your own. Get into these real estate investor clubs. Do what you got to do to meet as many people as you can in this business. Now, if you are interested in the Warrior program, text the word crush to 72345 if you'd like to apply for it. Again, that's crush to 72345. And, you can see if we're a fit. We'll see if you're a fit. And, do you feel like it's benefited you, John?
Immensely. Like I said, I've created a shift in myself, in my business, in my financial outcome. Better harnessing OPM, other people's money, Rod. And cash flow is an incredibly powerful thing, and those friendships, just lots of different things. So if somebody wants to reach out to me, I am very accessible, Rod. And if they want to talk specifically about the Warrior program, coaching, etc., let me know. I'm an open book, and I'd be happy to talk more with them.
That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you, buddy. I appreciate that. Well, listen, let me ask you, you've become such a driven person. Again, I was just kind of floored by the fact that you struggled the way you did. And I get it. I totally get it. It's like someone that, goes to the moon and what do they do, and then comes back home to earth. And it's like, what do you do next? And with your athletic, accomplishments. And so I get it. But, where do you think that drive comes from, buddy? Do you have any quotes that you live by? Any, maybe we're talking about the why, as it were, but answer that any way you like.
Sure. I think, you got to look back to how you grew up in some ways. And some people had tough upbringings that have really kind of brought them to another level. And some people had specific events that have taken place in their life. Looking back on my childhood in rural Idaho, I didn't have any kids, out of the country around me, but I did have a retired Green Beret that was in a wheelchair as a quadriplegic. And so that was who I rolled around with. And he still is an amazing human being. And his, Green Beret mentality certainly rubbed off on me. And Rod, I've said this to you previously, whether that be in multifamily or in rugby, in athletics, I was never the fastest. I was never the strongest. I didn't have the highest rugby IQ. I didn't have anything that really set me apart from anybody other than I was willing to go places mentally that other people weren't. And so you've got to be able to buckle down and push through barriers.
Yeah.
Don't run away from them. And that would be something that I would say is a major contributor.
Love it. Well, listen, great to see you, my friend. Hopefully, we're waiting for the world to open up so we can have our warrior only events and get together, besides doing it all virtually now, but we're doing small ones, of course, but nothing like we were last year. So really excited to hopefully do that third quarter this year. But anyway, it's great to see you, brother. My love to you and yours. And Mark, good to see you as well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, John.
Fantastic. That's a lot of fun, Mark. Appreciate it. Good to meet you. And Rod, thanks as always.
You got it. Take care, buddy.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet. Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year, we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411.